Bill Nye the Science Guy. Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Science rules.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Inertia is a property of matter.
Bill
T minus 7 seconds.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Welcome to Bill Nye's Science class. Today we're going to be talking about evolution. Bill couldn't make it today, but your host Charlie D is going to do a great replacement.
Whoa! Whoa! Whoa!
Whoa!
You can't teach evolution without teaching creationism. You have to teach both sides. Don't you want to encourage your students to have critical thinking? We can't ask our students to just rely on assumptions. We want them to discuss and to debate whether evolution happened or not just assume that it happened and then, the steps in between.
Evolution is about evidence and finding and motivating students into creating a debate about science, not a debate about religion and philosophy. Those questions are great for another class, but not fit for science. But I'll give you this. Consider the following.
Consider the following.
I will have our first ever evolution plus creationism class.
So let's talk about how creationists are unfairly snubbed by mainstream journals. Like, you never ever see creationist journals on the big science magazines that only scientists read. We don't even get the chance to express how we feel because for our journals to be published, a committee of fellow peers have to discuss it. So obviously a lot of them believe in evolution, so they don't let us express how we feel, how we think.
Science isn't done by a committee. We must work together to find certain evidence to testify a theory and then decide if it's able to go in mainstream journals. If intelligent design doesn't come in mainstream journals, then it doesn't have specific evidence that was needed. Your creationism is based off of a belief and not science evidence.
Believe that evolution requires as much faith as any other religion, and that it can be as dogmatic as any other religious belief. Because all the evidence found in evolution, you cannot observe it. It's only made out of assumptions. So you have to have faith to believe that it's correct.
Actually, most religions require supernatural items or supernatural beings. Evolution doesn't require you to believe in or not believe in anything or everything. So evolution basically is based off of evidence that was found in the past and not off of just a book like Genesis. It's just a theory like gravity. People take a leap of faith because they know that they're going to fall on their feet. People accept it and move on.
You want to talk about science? Then what about the irreducibly complexity of the blood clotting system? The cascade of the complex cascade of enzymes and cofactors have to be perfectly in place for the blood clotting to work. How do you explain that evolution?
Actually, the work of Dr. Russell Doolittle, and many other scientists have shown quite clearly that the system evolved by a process of gene duplications from serine processes that were once digestive systems.
The definition of altruism is when a human or an animal make an unprovoked act of kindness. You cannot put a human into an equation. Genes, the selfish genes, they're just genes. They don't think, they just want to reproduce. And to think that our entire biology is based on the selfish gene theory, that would be a very negative approach to the human race.
Perhaps animals, to a certain extent, can choose a behavior. Dawkins, in his book The Selfish Gene, discussed humanity in a biological sense with the notion, we are just genes that want to multiply. But really, there can be no altruism because genes do not think, they just reproduce. However, although we may have selfish genes, as simple one-on-one correspondence between genes and behavior is hard to find, especially in terms of human behavior. Selfish genes, inclusive fitness theory, and all evolutionary ideas are negative ways to see humans.
Individuals and scientists believe that genes are the ones that lead them into behaving how they do. Altruistic behaviors change the way that they act between other species in order to help their pack, hive, or group.
Reciprocal altruism has been used to explain behaviors between two unrelated individuals. It implies that it might be beneficial to incur an act of apparent kindness if there's a chance of being a reverse situation where the person who is helped before may perform a nice altruistic act towards the other. This may have evolved as a survival mechanism to ensure all members of the species or group have adequate food or shelter. Biggest example of this is the vampire bat, who regulates blood into the mouth of their mates if they are in need. For example, if I were a vampire bat, I would give my food to my vampire bat friend, hoping that my friend would give me food back. Later, if this would be an altruistic behavior that was passed on by ancestors as a way to survive.
Love it. Fish, reptile, and human embryos all have common ancestors and internal skeletons. This embryonic resemblance is called the biogenetic law, also known as ontology recapitulates phylogeny.
So, in Haeckel's formulated theory, the ontology recapitulates phylogeny, which is also the recapitulation theory, is ontology, which is the growth and development of an individual organism. Phylogeny is the evolutionary history of a species. Haeckel claimed the development of an advanced species passes through stages representative of adult organisms of more primitive species like fish. He proposed that the pharyngeal grooves between the pharyngeal arcs in the neck of a human embryo very roughly resemble the gill slits of a fish. In his drawings, they were incorrect and very controversial during his time, so it could be very misinformed. That was propagated through many biology textbooks and popular knowledge even today. Modern biology rejects the literal and universal form of Haeckel's theory, but in the modern status, which is like the Haeckel's form of recapitulation theory, embryos do undergo a period where their morphology is strongly shaped by their phylogenetic position. So embryos do reflect, of course, of those evolution, but of course is far more intricate and quirky than Haeckel claimed. Different parts of the same embryo can even evolve in different directions. As a result, the biogenetic law was abandoned, and it's freed scientists to appreciate the full range of embryonic changes that evolution can produce, an appreciation that has yielded spectacular results in recent years as scientists have discovered more of the specific genes that control development.
Also, in fish embryos, the gills stay, and in human and reptiles, they close up and lungs develop.
Well, first of all of that proof of what the evolution side just said, of what she just said, I forgot that Charlie D just said. It could be very easily photoshopped with the technology that is present to us to this day. So that is not very. So that could be mistaken. And second of all, the pouches found in the throat when in the embryo that are wrongly accused of being fish gills are actually very essential to the human development. So that I can say is incorrect.
Yeah. I don't like slime.
Well, talking about fossils, there's simply not enough evidence to rely the entire theory of evolution on it. There's so many missing links, and the theory of evolution is based on billions of years. You're saying that in billions of years there was a certain transition, but we only have evidence for a very small section of those years. So what's up with that, evolutionists?
As I was saying, instead of filling in the gaps in the fossil records with so-called missing links, most paleontologists found themselves facing a situation in which there were only gaps in the fossil record with no evidence of transformational intermediates between documented fossil species. Fossil discoveries can debate over attempts to construct simple evolutionary trees or cladograms. Fossils from key periods are often not intermediates, but rather hodgepodges of defining features of many different groups. Many fossils have been proposed, but each has been rejected in turn. All that paleontologists have to show for more than 100 years of digging are remains from fewer than 2,000 of our ancestors.
Paleontologists have found numerous fossils that have proven evolution to be true. But most importantly, the Tiktaalik that have shown the transition between land dwellers and fish.
Oh.
In continuation, a lot of people look to the fossil record for evidence for evolution. This is reasonable because we all found physical evidence that connect intermediates. Of course, there's some incompletion of the missing links, but it doesn't mean that they're not there. And much like the fish tetrapod that transitioned from a water animal to a land dweller, the Tiktaalik is a transitional fossil that was discovered and was very important to evidence of evolution. Much like the Tiktaalik, there has been tetrapods that have returned to aquatic lifestyles. For example, like the whales and dolphins. Whales and dolphins form a group of mammals called the cetaceans, which are most closely related to the hippopotami. Cetaceans evolved from terrestrial animals that looked a bit like dogs about 60 million years ago. This transition is documented by fossils such as the Pasidus, Ambulocetus, and Rhodectus. This is clearly adapted for swimming, but much like a four-legged animal.
Watching this special edition of Bill Nye the Science Guy, Evolution versus Creationism.
Obviously, evolution has won.